So, there's a lot of problems about research cloning. Some people support it, would support it, I think, if it was medically justified, a utilitarian argument perhaps. But if it's going to be allowed, it surely has to be monitored really closely so that abuses that these cloned embryos that are going to be now produced, we have a constitutional right to produce them in California, they're going to be in labs up and down the state. Reproductive cloning is prohibited in California, but it's not prohibited in 41 other states. There are no prohibitions on a federal level. So we face a situation in which unscrupulous investigators could, put a petri dish full of cloned embryos in his or her pocket, cross the state line, and do with them what he or she wanted. Try to produce a cloned child, try to produce a genetically modified child, a designer baby. There are no federal laws in the United States now against this. Well, okay, so now what? We have this initiative in California. It's part of our Constitution. What do we do? Well, the people who opposed it and some people who actually supported the initiative are getting discussions underway about how we can hold this, how we can bring public accountability to this situation. And it turns out we do have some unexpected help in this area. Just weeks after the election, a state senator who was a very high-profile backer and campaigner for the initiative, Senator Deborah Ortiz, has begun saying that the measure has serious defects. I wish she had said this, beforehand, but at least she's saying it now. She says that she's saying things that sound awfully familiar to us. There's no regulation, there's no oversight, there's no guarantees that monies will be returned to the state, there's no guarantees that Californians will be able to afford any treatments that are developed. She's concerned about a market of eggs. This is all sounding very familiar to us. And she's saying it now in the front pages of, there are more front page articles about the initiative, which were very frequent during the campaign. And she's talking about introducing legislation. And she's calling the Proposition 71 Public Accountability Act. Now, unfortunately, and Senator Ortiz knows this very well, the initiative contains language that actually forbids, as I mentioned, these kinds of legislative fixes. So it's not, clear how this is going to play out. But it's an area around which I think that some very, concerted efforts by civil society organizations and social justice activists, women's health activists is needed, and I think that we'll be able to bring that to bear. I also think that the California situation is really instructive for people in other states like New York, where stem cell legislation is being written and will be introduced. California did it all wrong, but other states, New York included, can do it right. New York could be a model of a good way to approach stem cell research. And again, concerted efforts and advocacy and interventions by social justice, women's health, and other progressive activists will be needed to ensure that that happens. Well, in the couple minutes remaining, I want to turn a little bit away from the stem cell initiative and say that while the stem cells are an important issue in their own right, they're also, I think, they also represent an early skirmish in the coming battles over other new human biotechnologies. And these battles, I think, will raise the new kinds of concerns, really unprecedented concerns, as some of which you've heard about from the other panelists tonight. Stuart and others, I think, mentioned that the most worrisome prospect is the development and commercialization of genetic and reproductive technologies that could allow us to modify the traits of future children. This is often now called germline genetic engineering or inheritable genetic modification. It would be a technique available, very, very expensive, far more expensive than existing assisted reproduction techniques, and would be available only to people who are already very wealthy. And it would constitute a new kind of eugenics, in fact, not the old kind that's mandated by governments, but a new kind that is being advocated by a disturbing number of influential people as voluntary choice by parents, market eugenics, consumer choice. Now, what's perhaps even more upsetting than the fact that this is being so openly advocated is the absence of voices that are telling these eugenic enthusiasts that this is not acceptable. There has been near silence from other scientists, and there have even been a few reproductive rights advocates that have accepted the notion that the eugenic engineering of future generations is an extension of choice. I think this is all wrong. Now this is the prospect of genetically engineered children is not one that we face in the next 4 years, as the title of today's symposium says, but we may face it in the next couple of generations. And the assumptions and the political approaches that we bring now to stem cell research and the other technologies coming online will shape and inform the battles to come over these even more profound technologies. So what are the lessons that we've learned from the stem cell research? I think the one that's been talked about several times tonight, we urgently need progressive voices on human biotech issues. The second lesson, a corollary really of the first, is that we cannot let these issues be monopolized by the right. These are issues that touch on our values, that touch on core progressive values, social justice, equality, and solidarity. And this is the juncture at which we're really aware of the importance of being able to understand deeply and articulate our values. And the biotechnology issues allow us a chance to do that. And the third lesson, and I'll have to end there, is that we cannot approach these issues solely as matters of individual choice. The individual choice framework is dangerously incomplete. Human biotechnologies have profound consequences for the world that we'll inhabit together. They're issues about the collective conditions in which individuals can flourish, issues about the common good and the kind of world that we want to live in and that we want to build together. So we're at an early stage in this debate. This symposium is part of early efforts to educate ourselves, debate and grapple with these issues, because there's not a lot of easy answers here, and start trying to mobilize to draw the lines in the right places. So thank you.